Thank you everyone for joining us for our second webinar for the First Nations Child and Family Services in Jordan's Principal Settlement. This webinar is titled, Are You Eligible? Removed Child Class and Removed Child Family Class Explained. A gentle note, the presentation may contain content that may raise difficult emotions for some people. Please take care of yourself in whatever way feels right for you. As we begin, I do want to acknowledge that some of the content we'll go over today may raise some difficult emotions. I want to remind everyone that there are mental health and wellness supports available 24 hours a day through the Indigenous-led Hope for Wellness helpline and through the Kids Help phone. If you need any wellness supports during our presentation, please click the link located in the chat and you will be put into a semi-private, separate virtual room with one of our wellness coordinators and they will assist you further. A quick disclaimer as we begin. This presentation has been developed to help you better understand the removed child and the removed child family classes. If there is a difference between what we talk about today versus what is written in the settlement agreement is correct. And I just want to thank you again for joining us. My name is Melissa, and I'm an urban claims helper in the Northern Ontario region. And with me today is my coworker Danielle, who also services Ontario's Northern region. And some of you may recognize us as we have been traveling in person, making connections across the North. We are very grateful to be here today to help you feel more prepared to complete and submit your claim forms for compensation under the removed child class and removed child family class. Today, we'll talk a little bit about the settlement and the supports available, details of the removed child class and removed child family class, how to submit your claim, and then what to expect in terms of timelines. So what is the settlement anyways? The settlement brings together several lawsuits against the Government of Canada to provide $23.34 billion in compensation for eligible class members. It intends to compensate those harmed by discriminatory underfunding of the First Nations Child and Family Services Program and those impacted by the federal government's narrowing interpretation of Jordan's principle. It includes 9 classes, and the administrator is now accepting 2 of those classes. The other ones will come at a later date. I want to emphasize that all of the $23.34 billion in compensation funds will go directly to eligible claimants. All the other costs implemented to implement the settlement are funded completely separately from this amount. It is important for you to know that the settlement is not connected to any child welfare agencies or services, and it is also not connected to current requests for Jordan principal settlements. So we'll talk about who can submit a claim. So as I mentioned, the 2 classes are open right now. On March 10th of 2025, the claims period for the removed child class and removed child family class opened. You may have seen these ads on Facebook or heard them on the radio. The removed child class includes First Nations children living on reserve or in the Yukon who were removed from their homes by child welfare authorities between April 1st of 1991 and March 31st of 2022. Certain caregivers of these children may also be eligible for compensation as part of the removed child family class, and class members of these 2 classes can now submit claims for compensation. Over to you, Danielle.
Thank you, Melissa. Supports for claimants. So you don't have to go through the process of submitting a claim by yourself if you don't want to. This settlement is different than other settlements because it has a number of supports built in to help you complete your claim in a way that works best for you. There are many free supports available to help you. So the main pillars of supports include the administrator and their contact center, the claims helpers, that's us, the settlement website, which is fnchildclaims.ca, The website includes a lot of online resources like guides and videos, service coordinators, and external supports. If you are interested in learning more about the supports that are available, check out our recording of our other webinar, and we're going to post that link in the chat. So in today's webinar, we're going to share more details about the removed child class and the removed child family class. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Danielle. So we'll start with the removed child class. So you may be eligible under the removed child class if you can answer yes to these questions. Are you a First Nations person? Were you a minor when you were removed from your home? Were you removed by child welfare authorities between April 1st of 1991 and March 31st of 2022? Were you or at least one of your caregiving grandparents or caregiving parents ordinarily residents on a reserve or anywhere in the Yukon? And was your removal placement funded by Indigenous Service Canada? You may not know the answer to who has funded your placement, but if you've answered yes to the other questions, you should consider submitting a removed child class claim form, also called Claim Form A. The administrator will review your claim and search for your name in the ISC database. If your name is in the database and all the other required information is submitted, your claim should be processed within 6 months. If information is missing or your name is not in the database, this will take longer. This settlement also includes caregiving parents and grandparents of people who've met the requirements under the removed child class. If you can answer yes to these following questions, you may be eligible under the removed child family class. Are you a parent or grandparent who has had a child removed from your care by child welfare authorities between April 1st of 1991 and March 31st of 2022? Was the child a First Nations person? Was the child a minor when they were removed? Or were you or the child living on reserve or living in the Yukon when that child was removed? If you've answered yes to these questions and were the caregiver responsible for the child when they were first removed, you should consider submitting a removed child family class claim form, also known as Claim Form C. The settlement also indicates that not everyone is eligible for compensation. For example, the settlement agreement is specific to First Nations people. This means that Métis and Inuit are not eligible for compensation. The settlement agreement says that, to be eligible, your removal and placement must have been funded by Indigenous Services Canada. So if a child left home on their own or were under court supervision within their home, they would not be eligible for compensation. As a family class member, your claim for compensation is in relation to the eligible removed child. So if the child is Métis or Inuit, left the home on their own, or were under the court supervision, you would not be eligible for compensation. Additionally, siblings, cousins, and godparents would only be eligible for compensation if they've adopted the eligible removed child through a verifiable adoption process. And the next portion we'll talk about is the claim forms for each of those classes. So a separate claim form is required for each class because each class has different claim processes and different requirements for eligibility. So if you believe you are eligible under multiple classes, you will need to complete and submit multiple claim forms for each class. So if you were removed from a home as a child and you also had a child removed from your home between 1991 and March of 2022, you would need to submit a removed child class claim form and a removed child class family claim form. As I mentioned before, right now, only the removed child class and removed child class family claim forms are available, along with the claim forms for representatives of a deceased removed child or deceased caregiving parent or caregiving grandparent. You may also qualify under other additional classes, but those claim forms are not available until those claims periods open for those classes. Over to you, Danielle.
Thank you, Melissa. This next section will discuss who can submit a claim and what you'll need. Every person must submit their own claim. This means you cannot submit on behalf of your child. The exception is if you have a legally appointed representative who may then submit on your behalf. In some cases, it's possible to submit a claim for someone who has passed away. This includes a class member who passed away before the claims period opened, and a class member who passed away after submitting a claim, but before the claim could be assessed. I'm not going to go over the estate claims process in detail today for the sake of time, but if you have any questions, please check out the website or call the administrator to get more information. So, age of majority. You're going to hear age of majority quite a bit through the claims process. You are considered a minor if you are below the age of majority in the province or territory where you live. And you are considered an adult once you reach the age of majority. So each province and territory sets its own age of majority, which is either 18 or 19 years old. This map shows the age of majority across Canada. So if you live in British Columbia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, the Northwest Territories, Nova Scotia, Nunavut, and the Yukon, the age of majority is 19 years old. If you live in Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, and Saskatchewan, the age of majority is 18. So you could submit your claim when you are within 2 years of becoming an adult. For example, if you live in Manitoba where the age of majority is 18, you could submit a claim when you turn 16. However, you won't receive a decision or compensation until after you become an adult. So before completing your claim form, it will be helpful to make sure that you have a valid government issued ID. The administrator will accept most forms of ID issued by First Nation governments, provincial and territorial governments, the federal government, or the foreign governments. If you don't have any government issued ID right now, you may be able to get a photo ID card from your province or territory with a guarantor declaration. Basically, this is someone who is a band counselor or a chief, a doctor, a lawyer, or a certified professional who can sign a document stating that they know you. They can confirm your name, your date of birth, and your address. You can contact your provincial or territorial government to find out how to apply for a photo ID card and what the requirements are for your guarantor declaration if you need one. So another thing you're going to need to get ready is a current mailing address. This needs to be somewhere you can reliably get your mail. The administrator will use your mailing address to send you letters if they need more information before they can process your claim, and also to send you your eligibility decision letter. If your address does change after you submit your claim form, it is very important to call the administrator and update your contact information. This is how the administrator will contact you about missing information and also your compensation. So you're also going to need a bank account in your name, and it will be helpful when it comes time to receive your compensation. It's the fastest and most secure way to get your compensation. If you don't want your compensation deposited directly into your bank account, that's okay. A check will be mailed to you. Keep in mind that there could possibly be mail delays that may hinder the timeline to receive your check. So we know that documentation requirements may be a bit overwhelming, and this slide here summarizes what you need for each class. If you are a representative, keep in mind that you must meet all requirements of the claimant as well as the requirements for you as a representative. It's important to note that you don't need to have a child welfare Records to submit the claim. The removed child family class claim form does ask some questions about when the child was removed and where they were placed. Even just filling in the year the child was removed will help the administrator process your claim. If you're not sure how to fill out that part of the claim form, please call the administrator and ask for help from a claims helper. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Danielle. So, our final section today will explain the timelines for submissions, assessments, and compensation. So, the submission timelines. So, everyone has 3 years to submit their claim. So, if you were already an adult when the claims period opened on March 10th of 2025, you must submit your claim by March 10th of 2028. However, if you were a minor when the claims period opened on March 10th of 2025, you have 3 years from the date you reach age of majority in your province to submit your claim. If you are more than 2 years away from reaching age of majority, the administrator cannot accept your claim. You will need to wait until you are within that 2 years of the age of majority, which means 2 years from becoming an adult wherever you currently live in order to submit that claim. Over to you, Danielle.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so once again, it is very important to understand that if you were an adult on March 10, 2025, as a removed child family class member, you must submit your claim form by March 10, 2028, regardless of the age of the associated removed child. This means that even if you have a removed child who is not yet old enough to submit a claim for themselves, you must still submit your claim as the caregiving parent or caregiving grandparent by March 10, 2028. For example, if the removed child is 5 years old, the child would not be able to submit their own claim for 13 or 14 more years. The child has to submit their own claim and can do so as soon as they are 2 years from becoming an adult at 18 or 19, depending on the age of majority. But the caregiving parent or caregiving grandparent must submit their claim as a family class member by March 10, 2028. If you aren't sure about your own deadline, please contact the administrator as soon as possible. For the removed child class, claims will be processed right away, and you could start to receive compensation within 6 to 12 months. In fact, some folks have already started to receive their compensation. However, for the removed child family class, the administrator will assess the claims after the ultimate claims deadline, which is 4 years from when the claims period opened. This 4 year period includes the 3 year claims period plus the 1 year extension. Family class claimants will be contacted regarding eligibility and compensation once claims are processed after their ultimate claims deadline 4 year period. This means that if you submit your claim today, you will receive an eligibility decision letter in 4 years. This timeline is so that the administrator has the opportunity to ensure that the competing claims can be identified and resolved, such as when more than 2 caregivers submit a claim for the same removed child. And this is why it is so important to make sure to let the administrator know if your contact information changes after you send in your claim form. Compensation amounts vary by class and individual circumstances. Compensation payments for the removed child class may be up to $40,000 per individual, and for the family class, it varies. It's really important for you to know that if you are eligible in more than one class, you will only receive the higher single amount. This amount, these amounts are not combined. This means that if you receive 40,000 in the removed child class and are later found eligible for 20 in the removed child family class, you will not receive any additional money. You will only get the original 40,000 because it is the highest single amount. For example, if you receive 40,000 in the removed child class and are later found eligible for 75 as a family class, the compensation you will receive for the family class claim will equal the difference between the 75 and the original 40,000. So the total amount of compensation you will receive is the 75,000. So if you are eligible for compensation, you will receive a compensation payment form with your approval of eligibility letter. You will then have 60 days from the date on the letter to decide whether you want your money by check or direct deposit. So once you've made your decision, you will need to send the form back to the administrator. The administrator will process your payment as soon as possible after receiving your compensation payment form. The administrator will then send a payment letter in the mail. If you choose to receive your money by mail check, the check will be included in the payment letter. If you choose direct deposit, the money will be deposited into your bank account 3 to 5 days from the date of your payment letter, not 3 to 5 days from when you submit the compensation payment form. If you do not send your completed compensation payment to the administrator by the time the 60 days is up, the administrator will mail you a check at the address on your claim form after the 60 days is up. Again, if your address changed after you sent in your claim form, call the administrator to update it as soon as you can. We don't want your check being delivered to the wrong address. If you don't already have a bank account, consider opening one and choosing to have your compensation payment directly deposited into your account. Checking cash or cash checking, checking, check cashing, sorry, services will take a big bite out of your compensation. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Danielle. So the next slide we're going to talk about is some financial information and what assistance we have available to help claimants. So your compensation money is yours to use in a way that works with your goals, your traditions, and your values. We encourage you to be cautious of people trying to charge you unexpected fees, people who could scam you, or maybe even people in your life who may not understand what your needs or your boundaries are. You may wish to speak to a person or an organization of your own choice that you trust who is good with finances to help you understand what options may work for you. Additionally, we have information to help you prepare to receive your money, and that is available on our settlement website. These web pages, brochures, and videos offer things to consider on how to make the most of your money. They also have information on how to stay safe from scammers and how compensation money could impact your social benefits or your taxes. It even has information on how you can turn your compensation from one lump sum payment into regular payments every month for many years, if that kind of steady income could be something you would benefit for. Therefore, some of these pages may be things to look into. I do have to emphasize that neither an administrator nor a claims helper can provide you with financial advice or tell you what to do with your compensation money. We can, however, refer you to the information on the settlement website or to a service coordinator who may be able to connect you with an organization who can provide advice specific to your situation. And a few important reminders here as we wrap up. Beware of fraud. You do not have to pay anyone to help you complete your claim. Contact our administrator at the phone number on the screen if someone tries to get you to pay for help with your claim. Do not share your personal information with anyone who tells you that they will help you send in your claim form. Our claim helpers can assist you, but only you as a claimant can sign, date, and submit your claim form. You do not need a lawyer to submit your claim. Legal information is available free of charge through class counsel, and they can be contacted through the administrator. If someone is trying to get your information and you don't think they should have it, please contact the administrator. And stay informed. Please sign up for updates on our website and check out the settlement's social channels on Facebook, Instagram, and X. When new materials are developed, like web pages, handouts, and videos, we will send a social media post out to let you know about it. And just a quick reminder before we go to the questions. Please take care of yourself and reach out to these organizations if you need support. That concludes our presentation portion today, and we hope it was helpful to you. Now we will go over a few of the questions entered into our Q&A functions. Okay, so a few of the ones that are coming in, we'll kind of get started here, are how long will it take to process my claims form? So it takes time for the administrator to process your claim form depending on what class you've submitted a claim for and your individual circumstances. So claims by removed child class members who are over the age of majority will be processed as they are received. Once the administrator has assessed the eligibility, you will then receive an eligibility letter. Claims from removed child family class members will be processed after that ultimate claims deadline we were talking about, which is 4 years from when the claims period opened, or if a minor on March 10th of 2025, 4 years from when that claimant reaches age of majority. Another question that came through is how long after receiving an approval of eligibility letter will my compensation be issued? So if you are eligible for compensation, the administrator will send you a letter to confirm your eligibility along with that compensation payment form. You will then need to complete that form to say how you would like to receive your payment and send it back to the administrator. You have 60 days from that date of eligibility to return the compensation payment form. If you do not return it within that 60-day period, the administrator will begin the payment process and provide that payment by mailed check. So payments will be processed approximately 60 days from the date you submit your compensation form, and sending checks may require additional processing and mailing time. Um, Question here says, people I know have already received their payments. Why have I not received mine? So yes, eligible claimants have started receiving compensation. But that being said, everyone has a different situation. So it takes time for the administrator to process each claim depending on which class you've submitted for and what those circumstances are. So I highly encourage you, if you have already submitted that claim form and have not received payment, to please reach out to the administrator because they can give you specific information to your situation. Another question we have is, why do I have to wait 4 years for my claim to be assessed? So we know 4 years does seem like a long time, but it's really important to keep in mind that that 4 year waiting period only applies to our family class, not the removed child class. It does take longer for the family class because the administrator does need to check for any potential conflicts between claims for that same removed child after all the claims have been submitted. So, for example, if more than two eligible caregivers submit a claim for that same removed child, the administrator would then need time to investigate and resolve all those conflicts. So, for that reason, decision letters and compensation for the family class won't go out until after that ultimate claims deadline of March 10th, 2029. And another question here is, how can I check the status of my claim and or update and add my information? So if you need to add information or make changes to your submitted claim form, including updates to your personal or contact information, please do not submit a second form or a new form. Contact the administrator at 833-852-0755 or speak to a claims helper and request that that be updated. To check on the status of your claim, you can either do it by calling the administrator, or if you yourself have submitted through the claims portal, you can log in and check the status of your claim on our portal.
Okay, so there's more questions coming in. Why are some people receiving an eligibility decision and or compensation when I applied before them? So the time it takes to receive compensation depends on what class you submit a claim under and your individual circumstances. For the removed child class, compensation will be sent to eligible claimants as their claims are processed. Claimants could receive compensation within 6 to 12 months of submitting a claim. In some cases, it may take longer depending on an individual's circumstances and if their claim form is missing information. For the removed child family class, claims will be processed after the ultimate claims deadline, which is 4 years from when the claims period opened. So for a minor on March 10, 2025, 4 years from when the claimant reaches the age of majority. This timeline ensures that any competing claims where more than two caregiving parents or caregiving grandparents submitted a claim for the same removed child can be resolved. For both the removed child class and the removed child family class, eligible claimants will receive compensation after they have reached the age of majority. So another question is there a claims helper in my area and can someone come to my community? So it's definitely possible. Both individuals and communities can contact the administrator and be connected to a claims helper. On the settlement website, there is a page with a map that shows where all the claims helpers are located. You can check out that map, or you can call the administrator and ask to speak with a claims helper near you. Can I change my banking information at any point? So once your bank account information has been submitted to the administrator, unfortunately, you cannot change that account information. That means that if you sent in your information for an RBC account, for example, you cannot change it to another bank or financial institution. If for whatever reason, you no longer have access to that account you previously submitted to the administrator, you can request that a check be mailed instead. You can change your payment method from direct deposit to a mailed check, but you cannot change from check to direct deposit. Okay, so do I send my banking information at the same time as my application? No, you do not. Only send your banking information after you receive an eligibility letter. This letter will include the compensation payment form to fill out and send to the administrator.
Perfect. And we have a few more coming in, I see here, Danielle. So, can I update my mailing address, is a question we got. So, absolutely. So, however, it is important to update your mailing address as soon as it changes. So, if you wait to see that your status has been updated, it might already be too late, as that administrator may have already sent out the mail. So, this would cause a further delay in receiving that settlement related package or settlement related information via mail. So, please update it as soon as it does change. Why has my claim status not been updated in so long? Why does it take so long to process? So it's a great question. The administrator and parties have worked to develop a claim submission process that's relatively straightforward, but the work to review and assess each claim form is very complex. So it takes time to gather relevant records, validate details, issue the decision, process payments, and the administrator needs time to ensure that the database records match the information on the claim form and make any inquiries if there is missing information or if some of those records are incomplete. So this is why the administrator has said that it takes, 6 to 12 months or potentially a little longer to process those claims to ensure that we were able to meet all of those pieces that we need to fall into place to ensure the smoothness of it. Well, the claim is being processed. There's no updates for the administrator to share with claimants, and the administrator will acknowledge once your claim has been received. They will reach out if there's missing information. They then will issue an eligibility decision when that assessment is complete. But until then, we will do our best to answer any questions that you have about the settlement. And if you are looking for any updates and you're not seeing something, we do encourage you to contact the administrator for an individualized update. Another question that's kind of coming in is I do not want to have to tell my personal story over and over again, and I'd like to work with the same person or the same claimed helpers through my process. Is that possible? So, first of all, the settlement does not require you to share your personal story or your narrative to submit your claim. We will do our best to accommodate you if you would like to deal with the same person throughout the process, although we cannot promise you that this person will always be available when you call. Regardless, your information will be kept on file, so you will not have to repeat anything. And all claims helpers are trained to provide services in a trauma informed and culturally safe way. For someone with limited reading and writing abilities, can they call someone to fill in their paperwork over the phone? And how long will they have to wait to speak to someone when requesting assistance? So, yes, you can get free one on one supports from a claims helper. They can help you complete your claim form, learn how to obtain identification, and share information about local resources and supports. We are available by phone, by video, and by in person in some communities where applicable. And to be connected, contact the administrator toll free at 1 833 852 0755 and ask for a claims helper.
Okay, I can answer the next few. I believe this one's on eligibility. How do I know if I'm eligible for compensation? So we are receiving quite a few questions about eligibility. We can't speak to anyone's specific situation, but generally speaking, if you could be a removed child class member, if you were a First Nation child while under the age of majority, was removed from your home between April 1st, 1991 and March 31st, 2022 by child welfare authorities, the removal from home happened while you or at least one of your caregiving parents or caregiving grandparents were ordinarily resident on reserve or living in the Yukon. The placement was funded by Indigenous Services Canada. You could be a removed child family class member if you are the caregiving parent or caregiving grandparent of a removed child class member. This means you must have lived with an exercise parental responsibilities over the removed child at the time of the removal. And you were the one who removed who the removed child was removed from. If you think you may be eligible for compensation under one or both of these classes, we encourage you to submit a claim. If these two classes don't apply to you, you may be eligible for compensation under the other 7 classes in this settlement. The claims period for the other classes will open at a later date, as each class requires a separate claims process that must be approved by the federal court. The next question I see is, are siblings eligible for compensation under the removed child family class? So, siblings are not eligible for compensation under the removed child family class unless they adopted an eligible removed child class member through a verifiable, provincial, territorial, or custom adoption process. However, siblings may benefit indirectly from the CPRIS fund, which provides culturally safe, trauma-informed supports to class members. Another question is, did I have to be taken from reserve to be eligible for compensation for this settlement? So, to be eligible under this settlement, you or your caregiving parent or caregiving grandparents needed to be ordinarily resident or reserve on a reserve or living in the Yukon at the time of the removal. Ordinarily resident on reserve means you lived most of the year on the First Nation reserve. You may have been temporarily living off reserve for education or work or to receive social services or other essential care. But if your main home was on reserve, you are considered to be ordinarily resident on reserve. Another question is, I cared for a First Nations child. Am I eligible as a caregiver? Are foster parents eligible for compensation? So the removed child class and removed child family class are aimed at compensating the following individuals who were harmed by the government of Canada's discriminatory practices and underfunding of child and family services. So the First Nation children, their biological and adoptive caregiving parents or First Nation step parents, their biological or adoptive caregiving grandparents. Foster parents are explicitly excluded under the terms of the settlement agreement. Can I apply if I was removed before 1991? This settlement is specifically about the discriminatory underfunding of the First Nation Child and Family Services program, which was put into place on April 1st, 1991, under a program directive of the Government of Canada. For this reason, children removed from their homes before the start of the program are not included in the settlement.
All right, thank you so much, Danielle. We have a few questions that are coming in regarding compensation. So the first question we have here is, how much will I receive? So compensation amounts and the timelines vary by class and your individual circumstance. Generally, base compensation payments may be up to $40,000 for each eligible removed child, but some claimants may be eligible for additional payments, and that would have to be a individualized conversation with the administrator to determine if there are additional amounts you are eligible for. Another question here says, I think I'm eligible for both classes. Do I get twice the compensation? So it is possible for you to be eligible in both classes, but the compensation amounts will not be combined. You will receive the single highest amount of the two. Is compensation taxable? You do not need to pay federal or provincial income tax on your compensation payment under this settlement. This means that you do not need to include your compensation as income on your annual tax return that you submit to the Canada Revenue Agency. If you live in Quebec, you do not need to pay Quebec income tax on your compensation payment or include it as income on your provincial tax return. So what payment methods are available? So payment is sent through direct deposit or by a mailed check. If you are eligible for compensation, the administrator will send you a letter to confirm your eligibility along with that compensation payment form. You will need to send back the completed form to say how you would like to receive your payment and send that back to the administrator. If you would like the payment to be directly deposited into your bank account, that account must be active and it must be in your name.
So another question is, can I submit a claim for someone else? So the answer to that is no. Every person must submit their own claim. But there are a couple of exceptions to this. The exception is if the claimant is deceased or is unable to manage their own financial and legal affairs due to the mental incapacity. In these cases, the representative may submit a claim on their behalf. Representatives include a legally appointed personal representative of a person under disability, the executor of the estate of a deceased claimant, or their eligible heir. For more information, for representatives, there will be available on the website in the next month. We will also send out information by email early next year. So if you haven't yet, please be sure to sign up to receive email updates. My mom passed and all her documents were thrown away. I need help getting her death certificate and status card number. Who can I turn to? Am I able to make a claim on her behalf? Requirements to submit a claim as a representative of a class member depends on the type of representative you are. A legally appointed representative is someone designated by the courts to make decisions on behalf of a person under disability or the estate of a class member who's deceased. An heir may be a spouse, child, grandchild, parent, sibling, or grandparent of a deceased class member. Only certain heirs may be eligible to represent a deceased class member and receive compensation on their behalf. If you aren't sure if you are eligible to represent a deceased class member, please don't hesitate to call the administrator. The next question I see is, I have a hard time filling out forms. I have someone in my community that I trust who's offered to help me for a small fee. I don't mind paying it for my peace of mind. Are you saying that's not okay? So that decision is entirely up to you. But you do have claims helpers at your disposal to help you for free. So you can you can get all your compensation without resorting to paying, sorry, without resorting to paying someone to assist you. Claims helpers will work at your pace to make sure you have everything you need to complete your claim form and are happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you, Danielle. And we have another question that popped up and it says, how do I know if I was ordinarily a resident? And am I not eligible because I did not live on the reserve and my mother did not live on the reserve? So ordinarily a resident means you lived most of the year on a First Nations reserve. So to be a removed child class member, you or one of your caregiving parents or grandparents must have been ordinarily residing on a reserve. You may have been temporarily off reserve for educational purposes, work purposes, or to receive social services or other essential care. But if the person's main home was on a First Nations reserve, they would be considered to have been ordinarily a resident on a reserve. So to the question about you and your mom, or you or your mom would have had to live on there live on the reserve most of the year to be eligible. If you're not sure, if you're still not sure about that specific situation, you can contact the administrator. We can check on those dates for you and we can give you a little bit more information based on your personal experience. And then we have another question talking about the impact of the mail strike. So mail delays are expected to continue as Canada Post does begin to do a rotating work stoppage across the country. The administrator continues to process all the claims regardless during this time period, and payments are still being issued. And that's why we encourage you to, if possible, open that bank account just so you have a more seamless way to receive your compensation funds. Now, another question that's also popped in is, what if your name is not in the database? Does this mean that I don't qualify? So if your name is not in the database, it does not mean that you don't qualify. There are many reasons a name might not appear, such as maybe a spelling difference or a missing record. You can still submit a claim if you think you may be eligible, and the administrator will review that information and confirm your eligibility. So to contact the administrator, you would call 1-833-852-0755 and they will help you directly. Another question that has come in is it possible to submit a claim for a removed child class on behalf of my deceased guardian who I was removed from by Child Family Services in 2022? My biological mother was deceased in 2002, and my aunt filed guardianship for me at 2 years old. I lived on reserve with my biological mom and my biological auntie. So yes, it is possible to submit a claim as a representative for a deceased class member. So please visit the website for more information as the requirements for representatives are a little bit different, and you can also contact the administrator for more information on that. We do have another question that's come in saying, can information sessions be provided for post-majority that are receiving claims on how they can invest? So this is a fabulous comment. There is information on planning to receive compensation on the settlement website, including a video. So please check that out and encourage others to do so as well. We have another question. I'm in a different time zone and I've missed the first 20 minutes. Is it possible for me to get a transcript of what I've missed? So we don't send out transcripts, but a recording of this webinar will be posted to the settlement website in about 2 weeks. So we'll send out an email when that recording is up, and then you can watch it from start to finish. I'm just going to see, we have a couple more questions still popping in here. So it says, what happens when someone makes a mistake on their forms and they only realize it after they've submitted that? So that's where we need to contact the administrator or speak with a claims helper right away once you've realized that, because then we can update your claim to avoid any additional delays. So again, just calling in at 833-852-0755. That gets you to the administrator, and then they can either give you a hand directly or connect you with a claims helper in your region to ensure that we get those corrections made for you. Okay. And I think that that about wraps up our time that we have today. So I just want to thank everybody for joining the webinar, taking time out of your busy day to be with myself and Danielle today. We greatly appreciate it. Again, please stay informed, follow the social media platforms, follow us on X, on Facebook, stay updated with the option on our First Nations and Child Family Settlement website. And if you have any questions regarding your eligibility or any questions regarding the settlement, please reach out to the administrator at any time and we would gladly help you. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.